Welcome back to another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube page at the Dave Smith Unleashed Podcast, and make sure you also follow us on Twitter at Dave Sports God, where we're always giving updates on when the next show is going to be, who the guests are going to be, what date and time it's going to be on. So follow us on YouTube on our YouTube page at the Dave Smith Unleashed Podcast, or on Twitter at Dave Sports God. You know, I'm a guy who loves tradition. That's why college football is my favorite sport. I love the tradition of college football. I love the pageantry. I love the rivalries. I hate the fact that it's come down to two power conferences now dominating college football in the Big Ten and the SEC. I miss the Pac-12. I miss the Southwest Conference. I miss the Big East. I miss the regional conferences. And the bowl games we'd have at the end of the year to decide a national champion. But the worst news of all came the other day. Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportations. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment for all your shipping, trucking, and freight needs. There's only one business to call, and that's MTS Transportations at 800-640-6873. MTS Transportations, 800-640-6873. It came when I read that USC and Notre Dame will not be playing anymore. The greatest rivalry in college football. These teams have been playing since 1926. When Knute Rockne, the coach at Notre Dame, and Howard Jones, the coach at USC, decided that they would start playing each other every year and turned it into an epic, great college football rivalry. And every year since 1926, except for 3 years during World War II, and except during the COVID year, they played every year. And Notre Dame has the edge 53-37-5. And here's what it came down to. Now, there's been talk about this since USC decided to abandon the Pac-12 and join the Big Ten a couple of years ago. And they'd been negotiating and trying to sign an extension, and they did sign an extension in November to extend the series another 2 years, in 2026 and 2027. But then, if we're to believe the story, USC found out about the new college football playoff deal that they'd come to an agreement with Notre Dame about, where that from now on, after this year's debacle when Notre Dame didn't get in when they should have, and two group of five teams, James Madison and Tulane, got in that both got blown out, when they made a change, Notre Dame now, if they're ranked in the top 12, will get an automatic bid. And evidently USC took issue with that. And saying, well, you know, we play a tougher schedule. We play in the Big Ten. We've got to travel a lot more. They can adjust their schedule where they don't have to play as many tough games. And then if we lose to them late in the season, it hurts us more than it does them, which I think is complete bullshit on USC's part. And Keyshawn Johnson agrees, the former great USC and NFL wide receiver. He took the Trojans to task today and said, I don't know what the F is going on with our administration and our athletic department. We got a coach who isn't a USC guy. We got a bunch of people who aren't Trojans running things. And why don't we just stop playing football? How about that? How about we stop playing? Why don't we avoid playing Oregon and Washington and all the tough teams in our schedule and just schedule Sacramento State and Northeast, West Texas, bum F Egypt schools? And he makes a good point. And he said he's ashamed and he's embarrassed. And I'm getting that from a lot of USC fans today from what I'm seeing on social media. Now, here's the excuse, as we mentioned earlier. USC, well, Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference, and they have an advantage, and we do. And we don't want to play Notre Dame late in the season in the middle of the Big Ten conference schedule. And it hurts us, just like in November when we lost to Notre Dame late. It cost us a spot in the college football playoff. So they proposed... Jen Cohen, the athletic director at USC, proposed to Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame, that they play a week 0 game every year, which means to open the season, maybe late August, early September, first game of the season, USC and Notre Dame. And Notre Dame said, no, we don't want to do that. That's something we're not interested in. And they went back and forth, and then USC said, well, it's a non-starter. Well, then USC backed out of the series completely when Notre Dame would not agree to week 0. And USC had issues. They don't want to play the game late in the season anymore. And the late loss to Notre Dame this year probably cost USC a playoff spot, although I would argue you shouldn't have lost the other two, Lincoln Riley. You didn't get in because you've got 3 losses, not because of the loss to Notre Dame. You could have survived that loss to Notre Dame if you had 2 losses, particularly if you had only 1 loss. You shouldn't have lost 3, Lincoln Riley and USC. And now we're losing the greatest rivalry in college football, and it angers me greatly. And others talk that USC might not be quite honest about this. And evidently, the Big Ten had a conference meeting about a year ago, and they met a couple of times since then, regarding the fact of USC wanting to change the date of the game and make it earlier, or that the college football playoff is cutting a deal with Notre Dame, and if Notre Dame gets a top 12 finish, they get an automatic bid. That was basically the subject of the Big Ten meetings, according to what I was reading. Unless, and if this is the case, this is bad, Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, unless he withheld that information from Big 12 schools. Now, why would he? How would that benefit him to withhold that information? So is USC lying about saying they were blindsided? They had no idea this was going to happen. They can't believe it. Well, we go back to, what did Lincoln Riley say after the November loss to Notre Dame? Well, we might want to think about maybe taking this game off the schedule from now on. It's not fair to us to play this late in the season and travel 2,000 miles again and maybe play in cold weather. It benefits Notre Dame more than it does us, and we lost a playoff spot because of it. So it sounds like Lincoln Riley was looking for a chance to bail out of the series. Now, is that the coward's way out, according to Keyshawn Johnson? I would tend to say yes. I mean, to blame travel and to blame weather and to say it benefits Notre Dame and it costs us a playoff spot. Well, don't lose the other two games then, Lincoln Riley. You didn't get in because you've got 3 losses. And here, USC, listen to this and listen good. If you're complaining about the Big Ten schedule, if you're complaining about the extra travel, if you're complaining about the weather, you shouldn't have left the Pac-12. Why did you abandon your brethren in the Pac-12? You should have stayed in the conference. Nobody forced you to do that. So it's on you. I think the blame falls a lot more with USC than it does Notre Dame. There was wiggle room here. There was room for compromise. I just don't think USC wanted to play anymore. I think they've lost 5 out of the last 6 and risked getting knocked out of another playoff spot. USC, it was your choice to leave the Pac-12. You lost 3 games this year. The loss to Notre Dame was survivable if you didn't lose any of the other ones, or even if you had only one other loss, you probably would have gotten in. This is a kick in the balls, if I've ever seen one, to people like me who love college football. This is terrible that this game is ending. Now, BYU is replacing USC on the schedule. Now we have Mormons against Catholics in 26 and 27. That doesn't do it for me the way USC and Notre Dame does. But how about some of the great memories of USC and Notre Dame? I think of 1974. USC is down 24-0 at halftime or late in the second quarter to a very good Notre Dame team. And USC, Anthony Davis returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown to start the second half, and USC outscores Notre Dame 55-0 after getting down 24-0. That's the most electric, exciting, loudest crowd I've ever heard at the Coliseum. And then one that went Notre Dame's way. How about 1977? USC goes back to South Bend, a crucially important game. A Trojan horse is rolled out onto the field before the game. And who pops out of the Trojan horse? It's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and they're wearing green jerseys for the first time in decades. Kelly green jerseys. And they went on to hammer USC 49-19, got up 35-7 at halftime behind the great Joe Montana at quarterback. And who can ever forget the Bush push in 2005? When USC was going for a national championship, they're behind late in the game. They convert a 4th down on a long pass from Matt Leinart to Dwayne Jarrett. They get down to the 1-yard line. Matt Leinart calls a quarterback sneak. If he doesn't get in, the game's over because USC was out of timeouts with less than 10 seconds left. He crosses the goal line. It looked like he was stopped, but Reggie Bush, they did the Bush push, and he shoved Leinart into the end zone, touchdown USC, and USC wins. Those are 3 off the top of my head that were absolutely classic, great games, and there have been many, many more, and those are coming to an end. And you can't tell me, USC and Notre Dame, that this couldn't have been saved, that there couldn't have been a compromise made. And for USC to make the excuse, well, why would we want to play Notre Dame in the middle of a tough Big Ten schedule? And it's another long travel game where we got to go 2,000 miles from L.A. back to South Bend when we play on the road. And you know what? It hurt us this year because we lost and we got bumped out of a college football playoff spot. And Notre Dame not being in the conference, well, it benefits them more not being in a conference. They can alter their schedule. They can not play as many tough games. They can schedule a weak opponent before they play us. So this isn't fair. we need to go to week 0 if they want to continue this series. And Notre Dame, and I think rightfully so, said, go screw yourselves. We'll keep it the way it is, or we'll compromise something. We're not going to play the first game of the season, week 0 every year against USC. So this is absolutely horrible. I would love to know what you think. Is it USC's fault or is it Notre Dame's fault? And give me some of your greatest memories of USC Notre Dame games. I came up with 74, the AD kick return and 55 straight points. 77, the Joe Montana green jersey Trojan horse game. 2005, the Bush. How about 72 when AD Anthony Davis scored 6 touchdowns in one game against Notre Dame? When I got to know AD, doing local sports talk in L.A., AD signs all autographs. Anthony Davis, the former USC great, Notre Dame killer down at the bottom. And that's exactly what he was. So let me know what you think on our YouTube page at the Dave Smith Unleashed Podcast or on X at Dave Sports God. Whose fault is it? Is it USC and Notre Dame? How upset are you that the greatest rivalry in college sports is gone due to greed, stupidity, and stubbornness? And again, USC, if you don't like the schedule, if you don't like the travel, you shouldn't have left the Pac-12. It's on you. And give me some of your greatest memories. What are your favorite USC Notre Dame games? So that's it for us. That's it for me, Dave Smith, here at Dave Smith Unleashed. We'll talk to you next time right here on Dave Smith Unleashed.